What's up everyone? In this video I'm going to talk about the Nikon 18-200 f3.5 to 5.6 G IF ED AFS VR DX lens. That is a very long name. It's just known as the 18-200 VR. This lens is only for DX crop sensor cameras. You can use it on your full frame cameras, but I believe most of the Nikon DSLRs or mirrorless cameras, when you do put it on a full frame camera, it will automatically go into DX mode. The 18-200 is such a fun lens to use, and in this video I'm going to tell you why it's such a good lens and see if it's still worth buying today. The 18-200 VR lens was released back in November of 2005 and brand new it was $700. I bought mine for $110 used at my local camera shop. Quick specs about the 18-200 lens. It has a 72mm filter thread. Max aperture is 3.5 at 18mm and at 200mm it's at f5.6. And at minimum aperture at 18mm it can go up to f22, and at the furthest at 200mm it can be set at f36. And it's fairly light too. It's one of the things I like about this lens. Personally, I do like some weight to it. It is a little heavy, but on the range, this lens is pretty light. Here's the size comparison between the 18-55, my 35, the 50, and my 85 prime. And when you zoom to 200mm, the lens is pretty long, but it's definitely not as long as you think it would be. So before going on my Chicago trip, I actually asked on Instagram to see if I should bring this 18-200 or my Sigma 10-20. Everyone voted the 18-200. And I'm also really glad I took the 18-200 just because it's such a versatile lens. I can see why so many people suggested it too. So if you haven't followed me on Instagram, give me a follow. So getting to the positives about this lens is that you can get a wide 18mm shot, and if you need extra reach at 200mm, comes in really handy. Here's an example at 18mm, and here's an example at 200mm. And like I said before, if I were going on a trip, this is the lens that I would bring. I would definitely recommend walking around this lens. As you can see here, when I was walking around Chicago, Chinatown, it was very nice to have. I didn't have to switch out my lenses, and usually I bring my Sigma 35 or like a prime lens with me, but man, just having this 18-200 was very nice. It was really fun. It's really versatile. I didn't have to switch out my lenses, and on top of that, this lens is quite light too. And during my Chicago trip, I never took this off my Z50 or the D90 just because it was just so nice to use. I did bring other lenses, but man, it just goes to show how good this lens is. Another positive about this lens is the VR, the vibration reduction. The VR helps compensate for camera shake. It can usually allow you to shoot sharper images because at 200mm you are going to be shaking a little bit, and that VR helps as much as it can too at that range. And another positive thing about this lens is actually the image quality. I wasn't expecting the greatest and the sharpest lens, but when I was using it, I was kind of surprised at how contrasty the images were. At f8, it's sharp throughout all the ranges too, and when it was on my Z50, it felt really well balanced. I didn't expect it to be like out of place or felt really unbalanced. Nikon definitely did something with the D90 and the 18-200 combo because it just feels right in your hands. And I can see why so many people paired it with the DSLR cameras. Just going to the cons, there isn't too many cons about this lens. I think one of the only things I could say is that it's not the sharpest lens. It will produce high quality images depending on what kind of photography situation you're doing. If you're pixel peeping, it's definitely not the sharpest, but as you can see with these images, it still produces very nice colors, very high contrasty images. I wouldn't say it won't produce sharp images, but the overall, if you compare this to like a prime lens or even the f2.8 zoom lens, it's definitely not the sharpest, but for what the 18-200 gives you, it's not too bad at all. And especially if you can find this lens for under $100, can't really say much about it. It's a $100 lens and it's gonna give you what you give it. So overall, like I said earlier, this is probably the best traveling lens that I've ever used. Usually when I'm walking around during my trips or just walking around town, I usually bring my Sigma 35 Art or a prime lens. After using this lens, I think I'm gonna bring this lens everywhere with me just because it's such a versatile lens and I don't have to switch out my lenses. I don't have to worry about dust getting into my sensors, dust getting into the lenses. This 18-200 does everything for me. So if you have any questions about this lens, comment below and I'll try my best to answer. And as I said earlier, I love using this lens on my Nikon D90. And I do have a video review on the Nikon D90 in my channel too, so check that out when you can. And if you're looking for older Nikon DSLRs, I do have a review of my Nikon D300S, the D7000, the D5000, the D40s. Check out my channel for more of those videos. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. And if you've gotten this far in this video, I just want to say I really appreciate you watching this video. If you have any questions, please comment below and I'll try my best to answer. Thanks.